The marriage ceremony took place on neutral ground, aboard the ancient diplomatic vessel Concordia, drifting in the empty space between human and Zelithy territories. Ambassador Kyria Theron stood in her ceremonial robes, their fabric shimmering with the light of distant stars visible through the transparent dome above. Her violet skin caught the subtle illumination, and her forearms remained perfectly still despite the nervous energy coursing through her. Across from her stood Commander Marcus Chun, representing Earth's unified government. He was smaller than her by nearly a foot, with only 2 arms, and that peculiar human trait of showing emotions so openly on his face. Right now, that face displayed a mixture of determination and something else she couldn't quite identify. Was it sadness? Regret? Or perhaps understanding? Are you certain about this, Ambassador? High Counselor Varek whispered beside her, his tentacles writhing with barely concealed anxiety. There are other ways to prevent war. The Zelithy Empire has never bowed to such primitive solutions. Kyria's primary eyes remained fixed on Marcus, while her secondary pair glanced at Varek. The council voted Varek. This alliance through marriage is the only option that satisfies both our laws and theirs. Would you prefer we test our fleets against a species that has survived everything the galaxy has thrown at them? They're barely spacefaring, Varek protested. Their ships are held together with primitive alloys. Their weapons still use kinetic projectiles and nuclear warheads. We could end this conflict in days. Could we? Kyria asked softly. Tell me, Varek, why hasn't anyone done so already? The Draconians thought the same thing 50 years ago. Where's their empire now? Varek fell silent. Everyone knew the story, though few spoke of it openly. The mighty Draconian hegemony, with their planet-cracking weapons and millennium-old civilization, had attempted to subjugate Earth. The war lasted exactly 73 days. When it ended, the Draconians had retreated to their core worlds and never ventured beyond them again. They refused to speak of what had happened, only warning others that humans were incompatible with conquest. The human officiant, an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes, cleared her throat. Shall we begin? Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. After a moment's hesitation, Kyria placed her primary right hand in his. His skin was warm, almost feverishly so compared to her own cool touch. His grip was gentle but firm, and she noticed calluses that spoke of physical labor despite his rank. Ambassador Theron, he said, his voice carrying across the chamber with surprising clarity. Before we proceed, I want you to know that I understand what this means for you. Leaving your world, your people, binding yourself to someone you've never met. I want you to know that I'll do everything in my power to make this transition easier for you. There was sincerity in his words that caught her off guard. Political marriages among the Zelithy were common, but they were typically cold affairs, business transactions in all but name. This human spoke as if her comfort actually mattered to him. Thank you, Commander Chun, she replied formally. I too understand the burden you bear. Your people value individual freedom highly. To sacrifice yours for peace speaks well of your character. A strange smile crossed his face. Please call me Marcus. And, if I may, you're not a sacrifice, Kyria. You're a bridge. There's a difference. The ceremony proceeded with a blend of human and Zelithy traditions. They exchanged vows in both languages, promises to honor the alliance between their peoples, to work together for mutual understanding and peace. When Marcus placed the human wedding band on her finger, adapting the gesture to her forearm physiology by placing matching rings on both her primary hands, she felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. The Zelithy bonding ritual required a telepathic sharing, a brief mental touch that would formalize their connection. As their minds met, Kyria expected to find the chaos and primitive emotions that her people associated with humans. Instead, she found something else entirely. Order within chaos. A mind that could hold multiple contradictory thoughts simultaneously and find truth in the paradox. Beneath the surface emotions lay depths she couldn't fathom, patterns of thought that seemed almost alien despite humanity's relative youth as a spacefaring species. And underneath it all, a core of something she could only describe as indomitable will. She pulled back, startled, to find Marcus watching her with concern. Are you all right? Yes, She paused, trying to process what she had sensed. Your mind is not what I expected. Better or worse? He asked with that distinctly human expression of wry humor. Different, she said diplomatically, though privately she thought dangerous might be more accurate. The reception that followed was a carefully choreographed diplomatic dance. Representatives from dozens of species mingled in the Concordia's vast hall, all pretending this was merely another political alliance, while carefully watching the first formal union between human and non-human. Kyria noticed how the other species gave Marcus a wide berth, polite but distant. Even the Vorthan ambassador, whose species prided themselves on their warrior culture, seemed reluctant to approach too closely. It was subtle, but having spent her career reading the nuances of interspecies relations, she couldn't miss it. They're afraid of you, she observed quietly as they stood together, fulfilling their ceremonial obligations. Marcus sipped a champagne, a human beverage that had somehow become the standard for celebrations across known space. Not of me specifically, of what I represent maybe. And what is that? He was quiet for a long moment. Potential, I suppose. Humans are new to the galactic stage. We're still figuring out our place. That uncertainty makes people nervous. It was a diplomatic answer, but Kyria sensed there was more to it. Before she could press further, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. A junior Zealoty officer rushed in, his secondary arms fluttering in agitation. Lady Chun, the officer corrected himself, using her new human title. We've received priority communications from aboard her. 3 Ragathi battle cruisers have entered the disputed zone. The room fell silent. The Ragathi collective had been watching the human Zealoty conflict with interest, waiting to see who would emerge weakened enough to be conquered. This marriage was supposed to prevent that. They're testing us, Varric hissed. They think this alliance is merely ceremonial. Marcus set down his glass with deliberate calm. Then, we should correct their misunderstanding. Kyria, I believe tradition dictates that we handle our first challenge as a united couple. She studied him, noting the subtle shift in his demeanor. The friendly diplomat was still there, but something else had emerged, something harder. You have a suggestion? I do, but it will require trust. Do you trust me? It was an absurd question. They had known each other for less than 3 hours. Their marriage was a political necessity, nothing more. And yet, remembering that brief touch of his mind, that impossible depth she had sensed. Yes, she said, surprised to find she meant it. Marcus turned to the room at large, his voice carrying with the same clarity it had during the ceremony. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings, I apologize for the interruption to our celebration. It seems some of our neighbors require a demonstration of human zealothy unity. If you'll excuse us, my wife, and I have a diplomatic matter to attend to. The casual way he said my wife sent another unexpected flutter through Kyria's chest. She pushed the sensation aside, focusing on the crisis at hand. As they made their way to the Concordia's command center, she noticed Marcus had somehow acquired a human military escort. They moved with the fluid efficiency of career soldiers, but there was something else about them, an alertness that seemed almost predatory. The Ragathi won't respond to conventional diplomacy, Kyria warned as they entered the command center. They respect only strength. I'm counting on it, Marcus replied. He moved to the communications console with surprising familiarity. Captain Morrison, are you in position? The main screen flickered to life, showing a human woman in military uniform. Behind her, Kyria could see the bridge of what appeared to be a human warship. Ready when you are, Commander. Though I still think this is unnecessarily risky. Noted, Captain. Proceed as planned. Kyria watched as the tactical display updated. A single human vessel, barely a third the size of the Ragathi cruisers, was moving to intercept. Marcus, 1 ship against 3 is suicide, even for a demonstration. You're thinking in conventional terms, he said. Watch. The human ship, identified as the HSS Persistence, dropped out of hyperspace directly between the Ragathi formation and the disputed colony. It was a precise maneuver, requiring calculations that should have taken hours to complete. The Ragathi ships immediately powered weapons, their intent clear. Open a channel to the lead Ragathi vessel, Marcus ordered. The screen shifted to show a Ragathi commander, its insectoid features twisted in what Kyria recognized as contempt. Humans and Zealothy. It buzzed. You play at unity with your primitive ritual. Stand aside or be destroyed. Marcus stepped forward, and Kyria saw that shift again, that transformation from diplomat to something else. Commander, I am Marcus Chun, speaking for the United Human Zealothy Alliance. You have entered restricted space. You have 30 seconds to reverse course. The Rogathi's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among their kind. One small ship makes demands of 3? Humans are more foolish than we thought. We will take the colony and dare you to respond. 20 seconds, Marcus said calmly. You threaten us? With what? Your ship carries no weapons capable of breaching our shields. 10 seconds. The Rogathi commander's compound eyes swiveled in confusion. This is absurd. All ships, prepare to fire. 5 seconds. Kyria, you might want to watch this closely. Watch what? She asked, but Marcus just smiled. Time's up, he announced. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the persistence did something impossible. It disappeared. Not jumped to hyperspace. Not cloaked. Simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another. 3 times in rapid succession, it flickered in and out of reality, and each time it reappeared, one of the Rogathi ships was suddenly without power. The entire engagement lasted less than 4 seconds. Ow! Kyria breathed, staring at the tactical display showing 3 Rogathi cruisers drifting helplessly. Quantum tunneling on a macro scale. Marcus explained casually. Theoretically impossible, according to every other species we've encountered. Humans have a different relationship with impossibility. The Rogathi commander reappeared on screen, his compound eyes now wide with what Kyria recognized as fear. This is you cannot, the energy requirements alone. Commander, Marcus interrupted, his tone conversational. The Human Zealothy Alliance thanks you for this opportunity to demonstrate our combined capabilities. Your ships will regain power in approximately 6 hours. I suggest you use that time to reflect on the wisdom of testing our borders again. He cut the connection before the Rogathi could respond. The command center erupted in chaos. Zealothy officers demanded explanations, tactical data, technical specifications. Through it all, Kyria watched her new husband with growing unease. He hadn't threatened the Rogathi. He hadn't destroyed their ships or killed their crews. He had simply rendered them helpless with technology that shouldn't exist. This is why, she said quietly, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. This is why no one dares fight humans. Not because you're stronger or more advanced. Because you do things that should be impossible. Marcus turned to her, and, for a moment, she saw something in his eyes that made her secondary arms twitch involuntarily. Every species in the galaxy has decided what's possible and impossible. You build your technology, your strategies, your entire civilizations around those assumptions. Humans, we never got that memo. The Draconians thought their planetary shields were impenetrable. We show them otherwise. Not by overpowering them, but by going around them in ways they couldn't conceive. Kyria felt a chill run down her spine. And now I'm married to you. The Zealothy are allied with humanity. Are you regretting it already? Marcus asked, and there was genuine concern in his voice. She considered the question carefully. The logical part of her, the part trained in diplomatic pragmatism, said yes. Humans were dangerous in ways her people couldn't fully understand. But another part, a part she rarely acknowledged, was intrigued. In 3 hours, Marcus Chun had shown her more surprises than she'd encountered in a decade of diplomatic service. No, she said finally, but I am beginning to understand why this marriage was necessary. It wasn't just to prevent war between our species. It was to ensure we were on the same side when the rest of the galaxy realizes what humans truly are. Marcus's smile was both sad and knowing. We don't want to conquer anyone, Kyria. We just want to explore, to learn, to grow. But we learned early that the universe is dangerous, and the best defense is to be too costly to attack. Not through strength alone, but through uncertainty. No one attacks what they can't understand or predict. And your people agreed to this marriage because we're tired of being alone, he said simply. We've spent 50 years being the species everyone fears. Maybe it's time to try being the species someone trusts. Starting with you. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard again. This human, this impossible, dangerous, strangely compelling human, was offering not just an alliance, but something more personal. Trust goes both ways, she said carefully. Will you show me how the quantum tunneling works? His laughter was warm and genuine. I'll show you everything, Kyria. That's what marriage is about, isn't it? No secrets between partners. As the Concordia continued its journey toward Earth, where Kyria would make her new home, she reflected on the strange turn her life had taken. She had entered this marriage expecting a cold political arrangement with a primitive species. Instead, she found herself bound to a race that defied the very laws of physics, and a man who seemed genuinely determined to make their union work. The warnings about humans had all been wrong, she realized. They weren't dangerous because they were savage or warlike. They were dangerous because they refused to accept limitations, because they looked at the impossible and asked why not. And now, for better or worse, she was one of them. As Marcus showed her the technical specifications for the quantum tunneling drive, explaining concepts that made her head spin despite her advanced education, Kyria made a decision. She wouldn't just be a political symbol, a bridge between their species. She would learn to think like a human, to see the universe through their eyes. Because if the last 3 hours had taught her anything, it was that the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Humanity's isolation was ending, and with it, the comfortable assumptions every other species had built their civilizations upon. And Kyria Therinchin would be there to witness it all. Earth was nothing like the intelligence reports had suggested. Kyria pressed her face against the shuttle window as they descended through the atmosphere, her 4 arms braced against the frame. Where she had expected to see a world scarred by wars and environmental destruction, she instead saw vast expanses of green forests, crystal blue oceans, and cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape rather than dominating it. Surprised, Marcus asked from the seat beside her, noticing her expression. "Your world is beautiful," she admitted. "Our reports indicated significant environmental damage from your industrial periods." There was, Marcus confirmed. About 150 years ago, Earth was dying. Oceans acidifying, atmosphere heating up, ecosystems collapsing. Then, we discovered something interesting. Faster-than-light travel. No, that came later. We discovered that fixing our mistakes was the greatest challenge we'd ever faced. And humans, well, we've never been able to resist a challenge. He gestured toward the window. What you're seeing is 3 generations of terraforming technology applied to our own world. We practiced on Earth before we ever tried it on Mars or Europa. The shuttle banked, revealing a sprawling metropolis that defied conventional architecture. Buildings twisted skyward in impossible spirals, connected by bridges that seemed to float without support. Gardens cascaded down their sides, and Kyria could see people moving along walkways that curved up and around the structures as if gravity were negotiable. New Singapore, Marcus identified. One of our vertical cities. 20 million people in a footprint smaller than Old Manhattan. We'll be living just outside it, if that's acceptable. I thought you might prefer somewhere less crowded while you adjust. You secured accommodations already? I've had a place prepared for months, he said, then added almost shyly. I wanted it to be comfortable for you. 4-armed furniture, Zealothy standard atmosphere controls in your private spaces, even a small greenhouse with plant from your homeworld. The botanical exchange program helped with that. Kyria turned to study him, once again caught off guard by his thoughtfulness. You've been planning this for months? But the marriage was only approved 2 weeks ago. I knew it would happen eventually. We're dealing with bureaucracies from 2 different species. You learned to prepare early. He paused. I also studied everything I could about Zealothy culture, biology, preferences. I want you to feel welcome here. The shuttle touched down on a private landing pad surrounded by terrestrial gardens. As the hatch opened, Earth's atmosphere flooded in, richer in oxygen than she was used to, carrying scents of vegetation, and something else, something alive and vibrant that seemed to permeate everything. Their home, and Kyria had to consciously think of it as theirs was a blend of human and Zealothy architecture that somehow worked. Clean lines and organic curves merged seamlessly, with spaces that accommodated her greater height and additional limbs without feeling forced. The main living area opened onto a terrace that overlooked a lake, its waters reflecting the afternoon sun. Your rooms are through here, Marcus said, leading her down a hallway. I know Zealothy value privacy, so you have your own suite. Temperature, humidity, even the light spectrum can be adjusted to match your homeworld. The bathroom includes a mineral bath. I read that your species finds them restorative. The suite was perfect. Too perfect. Every detail, from the sleeping platform designed for her unique physiology to the meditation alcove with its carefully arranged crystals, showed not just research, but genuine care in its preparation. Marcus, she began, then stopped, unsure how to express what she was feeling. Too much, he asked, suddenly anxious. I can change things, remove whatever you don't like. No, it's... She touched the wall, where he'd hung a tapestry from her home province, one that hadn't been available through any commercial channels. How did you get this? I reached out to your family. Your sister, Lyria, helped me understand what might make you feel at home. I hope that wasn't overstepping. My family spoke with you? The thought of her reserved, traditional family conversing with a human was almost as shocking as the marriage itself. Several times. Your father had many questions about my intentions. Your mother sent recipes, insisting you'd need proper food. Your sister, he smiled. Your sister threatened to personally relocate me to a black hole if I hurt you. I liked her immediately. A laugh escaped before Kyria could stop it, a sound that surprised them both. That sounds like Lyria. She also sent this. Marcus pulled out a small hollow projector, activating it to display a message. Kyria's family appeared in miniature, gathered in her childhood home. Her father's formal bearing couldn't quite hide the emotion in his secondary eyes. Her mother's 4 arms moved in the traditional blessing gesture. And Lyria, irrepressible as always, waved with all 4 hands. Kyria, her father's recorded voice began. We know this path you've chosen requires great sacrifice. But the human, Marcus Chun, has impressed us with his dedication to your well-being. Perhaps these humans are not as primitive as we believed. Be well, daughter. Make us proud. Also, Lyria's voice cut in. He asked about your favorite foods, your sleeping preferences, even what kind of music helps you concentrate. Either he's the galaxy's most thorough spy, or he actually cares. I'm betting on the latter. Call me when you get settled. The recording ended, leaving Kyria staring at the space where her family had been. She hadn't expected this. Any of this. Thank you, she managed. They love you, Marcus said simply. They wanted to be sure you'd be cared for. I promised them I'd do my best. Over the following days, Kyria began to understand just how seriously Marcus took that promise. He introduced her to human customs gradually, never overwhelming her with too much at once. When she struggled with Earth's higher gravity, he had exercise equipment delivered specifically designed to help her adapt. When certain human foods proved incompatible with her digestion, he learned to cook Zealothi cuisine, somehow making her mother's recipes even better than she remembered. But it was the small things that truly unsettled her. The way he noticed when she was homesick before she said anything. How he'd leave her favorite Zealothi tea brewing when she woke up. The careful way he included her in conversations with other humans, making sure she never felt like an outsider. One evening, about a week after their arrival, they sat on the terrace watching Earth's sunset. The sky painted itself in colors Kyria had never seen on her homeworld, brilliant oranges and purples that seemed almost alive. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. Why are you trying so hard? This marriage is political. You don't have to. She gestured vaguely at everything around them. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, gazing at the sunset. Do you know what the hardest part of first contact was for humans? She shook her head. It wasn't the technology gap or the cultural differences. It was discovering that every other species had been watching us for centuries, waiting to see if we'd destroy ourselves. They had a betting pool, apparently. The Vorthan gave us 50 years. The Draconians were more generous. They said a century. That's... Kyria searched for the right word. Cruel. Is it? We were violent, divided, destroying our only planet. From the outside, I'm sure we looked doomed. He turned to face her. But here's the thing about humans. We're at our best when things are worst. When the Galactic Council finally made contact, told us we'd been under observation, showed us how close we'd come to extinction, it changed us, unified us in a way nothing else could have. And this relates to our marriage how? Because for 50 years, we've been the galaxy's outliers. The species that shouldn't have survived, but did. The ones who do impossible things because we don't know they're impossible. We've been alone out here, Kyria. Not physically, We have embassies, trade agreements, all the trappings of interstellar civilization. But no one really trusts us. No one gets close. Understanding dawned. Until now. Until you, he corrected. You're not just the first non-human to marry one of us. You're the first to take a chance on us. To say maybe, just maybe, humans are worth knowing. Worth trusting. He looked at her directly. So yes, I'm trying hard. Because if this fails, it won't just be a failed marriage. It'll confirm what everyone suspects, that humans and the rest of the galaxy are fundamentally incompatible. The weight of that settled on her shoulders. She'd known the political importance of their union, but this was deeper, more personal. No pressure, she said dryly, employing the human sarcasm she'd been learning. Marcus laughed. Sorry, that was heavier than I intended. What I mean is, I like us to be friends, at least. Partners. Maybe even. He trailed off, but she heard what he didn't say. The possibility hung between them, unspoken but present. Before she could respond, his communicator chimed. He glanced at it and frowned. We have visitors. General Harrison and what looks like half the Joint Chiefs. Military? Here. Unease prickled along her spine. High-ranking military officials didn't make social calls. They met the delegation in the formal reception room. General Harrison was exactly what Kyria expected from a human military leader. Steel gray hair, sharp eyes, and a bearing that suggested barely contained violence. But it was the woman beside him who drew Kyria's attention. Tall, dark-skinned, with an aura of authority that transcended rank. Admiral Reyes. Marcus greeted her with obvious respect. I wasn't expecting you. Emergency session, Reyes replied, her voice clipped. We have a situation. Ambassador Therenchen, thank you for agreeing to see us. Kyria noted the use of her married title, the respect implicit in it. What situation? General Harrison activated a hollow display showing star charts. 3 hours ago, a Ziran dreadnought entered the Proxima system. They're claiming mineral rights to the entire sector. That's absurd, Kyria said immediately. The Proxima Accords clearly established Dash. The Ziran are claiming the Accords are invalid. Admiral Reyes interrupted. They say humanity's rapid expansion violates the natural order. They're demanding we withdraw from 40% of our colonies. Or, Marcus asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Or they'll forcibly evict us. The room fell silent. Kyria felt her secondary arms tense. The Ziran Empire was old, powerful, with technology centuries ahead of most species. If they wanted war, how long do we have? Marcus asked. They've given us 72 hours to begin evacuation, Harrison said. The council is meeting in emergency session, but they won't act, Kyria finished. The Ziran contribute too much to the galactic economy. The council will issue protests, perhaps sanctions, but they won't risk military intervention. Which brings us to why we're here, Admiral Reyes said, focusing on Kyria. You're our first alliance marriage. The Zealothi have influence second only to the Ziran. If you were to speak to the council, add your voice to ours. You wanted to drag my people into your conflict, Kyria said flatly. We want you to prevent a conflict, Reyes corrected. The Ziran are counting on human isolation. If the Zealothi stand with us, others might follow. The Ziran might reconsider. And if they don't, the humans exchange glances. It was Marcus who answered. Then we defend ourselves. And the galaxy learns why that's a bad idea. There was no boast in his words, just quiet certainty. Kyria remembered the Ragathi cruisers, disabled in seconds by technology that shouldn't exist. I need to contact my government, she said finally. But I make no promises. After the delegation left, Kyria found herself pacing the terrace, her forearms gesturing animatedly as she spoke with the Zealothi High Council via quantum communication. Absolutely not. Counselor Varek's image stated flatly. The Ziran are too powerful. We will not risk war for human colonial interests. The Proxima colonies house 30 million humans, Kyria argued. Including families, children dash, humans breed quickly. They'll recover. The casual dismissal of 30 million lives sent cold fury through her veins. Counselor, with respect, that's exactly the attitude that drives human isolation. We treat them as expendable because they're different. They are different, another counselor interjected. Unpredictable. Dangerous. This marriage was supposed to keep them contained, not draw us into their conflicts. Contain. Kyria couldn't keep the disgust from her voice. Is that what I am? A containment measure? You are a diplomatic necessity, Varek said coldly. Nothing more. Do not forget your duty, Ambassador. The connection ended, leaving Kyria staring at empty air. She became aware of Marcus standing in the doorway, having clearly heard at least part of the conversation. I'm sorry, she said, shame burning in her chest. I didn't know. I thought I was building a bridge, not being a zookeeper. Marcus suggested gently. It's all right, Kyria. We suspected as much. How can you be so calm? My people, the council, they see you as animals to be managed. Marcus moved to stand beside her, gazing out at the lake where night was falling. Because we've heard worse, been treated worse, and we're still here. He paused. The question is, what do you see us as? It was a fair question. What did she see when she looked at Marcus? At humanity? The reports said primitive. The council said dangerous. The evidence said impossible. But her experience said something else entirely. I see potential, she said slowly. I see a species that refuses to accept limitations. That looks at the universe's rules and asks, but what if we tried this instead? I see. She turned to face him. I see people worth knowing, worth defending, even against your own government. Especially then, the decision crystallized in her mind. Marcus, what would happen if I publicly stood with humanity at the council meeting? Not as a zealothy representative, but as myself. You'd likely be disowned, stripped of your position, exiled. And if I did it anyway, a slow smile spread across his face. Then, you'd be thinking like a human. The next morning, Kyria stood before the Galactic Council, her image broadcast to representatives of over 100 species. She wore neither zealothy diplomatic robes nor human attire, but a simple suit that belonged to neither culture. Esteemed counselors, she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. I stand before you not as a zealothy ambassador, but as someone who has lived among humans, who has seen who they truly are beneath our fears and prejudices. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Varek's image glared at her with undisguised fury. The Zirin claim humans expand too quickly, that they threaten the natural order. But what is the natural order? Stagnation? Fear of change? Watching new species rise and fall from comfortable distance. She let her secondary arms spread wide, a gesture of openness. Humans don't threaten us with expansion. They threaten us with possibility, with the idea that maybe, just maybe, the way we've always done things isn't the only way. You overstep, Kyria, Varek warned. Yes, she agreed. Edo, because that's what humans have taught me. Sometimes the only way forward is to step beyond what's safe, what's known, what's permitted. She touched a control, and the tactical display from the Ragathi encounter appeared. Gasps echoed through the chamber as they watched 3 warships disabled by a single human vessel. This is human technology, she continued. Quantum tunneling on a scale we deemed impossible. They developed it not to conquer, but to protect. Because humans don't want our worlds or our resources. They want to explore, to grow. But it was the Zirin ambassador who surprised everyone. The human offers intrigue. Its mechanical voice stated, we will reconsider our position. Perhaps discussion has merit. It wasn't a complete withdrawal, but it was movement, a crack in the wall. Later, back on Earth, Kyria sat in their living room feeling the weight of what she'd done. Her career was over. Her standing among her people destroyed. Everything she'd worked for her entire life gone. Marcus entered carrying 2 mugs, coffee for him, mineral tea for her. Regrets? He asked, settling beside her. Stranli? No. She accepted the tea gratefully. Though I suppose I'm unemployed now. Do humans have use for exiled alien diplomats? Actually, Marcus said with a grin, we have an opening for a director of interspecies relations. It's a new position. Involves helping humanity better understand other cultures while helping other species understand us. Interested? You created a job for me? We created a necessary position that happens to be perfect for you, he corrected. There's a difference. Besides, after that speech, we've had inquiries from 12 different species about cultural exchange programs. Apparently, some people were impressed by an alien who thinks like a human. Kyria felt something warm bloom in her chest. Not just gratitude, but belonging. I suppose I should actually learn to think like a human then. You already do, Marcus said. You looked at an impossible situation and asked, what if? That's the most human thing there is. As the weeks passed, Kyria threw herself into her new role. She established exchange programs, mediated misunderstandings, and slowly began building the bridges their marriage had promised. Some zealoty denounced her as a traitor. Others, particularly younger ones, began reaching out, curious about these humans who had won her loyalty. But it was a message from her sister that touched her most deeply. The council is furious, Lyria's hollow image reported with obvious glee. But the people... Kyria, you should see the discussions in the forums. If Ambassador Theron trusts them, maybe we should listen. You're causing quite the revolution. I'm just doing what feels right, Kyria protested. Exactly. That's what has them so confused. A zealothy following instinct over protocol? Acting on personal conviction rather than collective decision? You really are thinking like a human. Lyria paused. And it suits you. I haven't seen you this alive in years. It was true, Kyria realized. Something had changed in her, something fundamental. The rigid structures of thought that had defined her life were giving way to something more fluid, more adaptive, more human. That night, as she and Marcus worked side by side on plans for a multi-species science symposium, she found herself studying him. This human who had welcomed her with such patience, who had made space for her in his life and his world without asking her to be anything but herself. Marcus, she said suddenly. He looked up from his tablet. Yes, I think. She paused, gathering courage for one more impossible thing. I think I'm falling in love with you. His stylus clattered to the floor. You what? It's illogical, she continued, warming to the theme. We're different species. Our biochemistry is incompatible for reproduction. Our cultures are vastly different. By every metric my people use, it's impossible. But, he prompted, hope dawning in his eyes. But humans do impossible things. And I'm thinking like a human now. She reached out with her primary hand, touching his face gently. So, I'm choosing to do the impossible and love you anyway. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. For what it's worth, I've been doing the impossible and loving you since the day you stood before the council and chose possibility over safety. That was only 3 weeks ago. I'm human. We fall fast and hard. He grinned. It's another impossible thing we do. As they kissed, carefully, given their different anatomies, Kyria marveled at the turn her life had taken. She'd entered this marriage to prevent a war. She'd thought she was sacrificing herself for peace. Instead, she'd found something infinitely more valuable. A partner who saw her potential. A species that embraced the impossible. A love that shouldn't exist, but did anyway. And in that moment, Kyria Theron understood the true secret of humanity. It wasn't their technology or their adaptability or even their refusal to accept limitations. It was their capacity to believe in connections that transcended logic, to build bonds that defied probability, to love without reservation even when the universe said it couldn't work. It was the most impossible thing of all, and the most human. As news of their genuine partnership spread, more species began to reconsider their stance on humanity. Not because of fear or political pressure, but because of curiosity. If a zealothy could find happiness with a human, if two such different beings could build something together, what else might be possible? The answer, as humanity had been trying to tell the galaxy all along, was anything. Absolutely anything at all. 6 months into her marriage, Kyria discovered that humans had a disturbing tendency to solve problems by making them worse. She stood in the observation deck of the USS Prometheus, watching Earth's newest diplomatic vessel prepare for its maiden voyage. Beside her, Marcus reviewed technical specifications on his tablet with the focused intensity she'd come to associate with human planning. Explain to me again, she said carefully, why humanity's response to the Xeran backing down is to build a ship that violates 17 different galactic treaties? Technically, it only violates 16, Marcus corrected absently. The gravitic weapons clause doesn't apply since we're not weaponizing gravity itself, just bending it creatively. That's not reassuring. He looked up, offering that distinctly human expression that combined innocence with mischief. The Prometheus isn't a warship, Kyria. It's a diplomatic vessel. With quantum tunneling drives, dimensional phase shifters, and what your engineers creatively call aggressive negotiation modules. We prefer to think of it as being prepared for vigorous diplomatic discussions. Before Kyria could respond, Admiral Reyes entered the observation deck, accompanied by someone Kyria had only seen in intelligence briefings, Director Sarah Chun of Earth Department of Impossible Things. The woman was small, elderly, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see too much. Ambassador Theron Chun, Director Chun said, offering a hand that Kyria shook carefully with her primary right arm. I've been eager to meet the person who called humanity's approach disturbingly effective in her last report. I stand by that assessment, Kyria replied. Good. Accurate threat assessment is crucial for what comes next. The director moved to the window, watching the Prometheus with an expression Kyria couldn't read. Tell me, Ambassador, what do you know about the Harmony Collective? Kyria's secondary arms twitched involuntarily. They're a myth, a story told to frighten young species into compliance. An ancient civilization that supposedly judges whether emerging species are worthy of continued existence. Not a myth, Director Chin said simply. They made contact yesterday. The observation deck fell silent except for the distant hum of the station systems. Kyria felt her heart skip in their alternating rhythm. That's impossible, she said finally. If the Harmony Collective were real, surely the elder species would have mentioned Dash. The elder species don't know, Admiral Reyes interrupted. Or rather, those who encountered them didn't survive to tell about it. Except one. The Draconians, Marcus said quietly. Director Chin nodded. 50 years ago, the Draconians didn't retreat from human space because we defeated them. They retreated because the Harmony Collective told them to. Warned them that humanity was under evaluation. Evaluation for what? Kyria demanded. Whether we're an asset or a threat to galactic stability, Director Chin replied. They've been watching us ever since. Every impossible thing we've done, every treaty we've bent, every species we've surprised. And now they want to meet. Where? That's the problem. They've given us coordinates in unclaimed space, but they're unusual. The location doesn't match any known stellar cartography. Marcus pulled up the data on his tablet, frowning. These coordinates are in the middle of empty space. There's nothing there. Nothing we can see, Director Chin corrected, which is why the Prometheus includes sensors designed to detect dimensional variances. We think the Harmony Collective exists partially outside our normal space-time. Of course they do, Kyria muttered, because regular space wasn't complicated enough. The meeting is in 72 hours, Admiral Reyes continued. We're sending our best diplomatic team. Marcus, you're leading it. Ambassador Theron Chun, we'd like you to accompany him. Why me? Because you're proof that humans can integrate with galactic society, Director Chin said. You think like us now, but you retain your zealothy perspective. If the Harmony Collective is evaluating our species, having you there might demonstrate that we're capable of growth, of partnership. Or it might convince them that we're corrupting other species, Kyria pointed out. Possibly, Director Chin agreed. But doing nothing isn't an option. If the Harmony Collective decides we're a threat, she'd need to finish. A civilization advanced enough to exist between dimensions could likely erase humanity with a thought. 2 days later, Kyria found herself aboard the Prometheus, trying not to think about how many physical laws the ship violated simply by existing. The crew was small, 20 humans, and herself, each selected for specific skills. She noticed several war badges from the Department of Impossible Things, which did nothing for her confidence. Nervous? Marcus asked, finding her in the ship's observation lounge. Should I be? Probably. He sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth humans radiated. But for what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. If this goes badly, at least we'll face it together. Such romantic words, she said dryly, but shifted to press against his side. They'd grown comfortable with physical contact over the months, finding ways to bridge their biological differences. His hand found her secondary left hand, fingers interlacing in a gesture that had become familiar. Can I ask you something? She said after a moment. Always. Are you afraid? Your species acts like nothing scares you, but this. Terrified, he admitted without hesitation. But that's when humans do our best work. When we're scared, backed into a corner, facing the impossible. That's when we stop thinking about what we can't do and start thinking about what we must do. And if what you must do isn't enough, Then we improvise. He squeezed her hand. It's worked so far. A chime indicated they were approaching the coordinates. Kyria followed Marcus to the bridge, where Captain Morrison was frowning at her displays. We're at the specified location, she reported. But sensors show nothing. No ships, no structures, no dimensional variances. Maybe we're early, someone suggested. Or maybe, Director Chun said from her station, we're not looking correctly. Captain, engage the probability scanners. Probability scanners? Kyria asked. Another impossible thing, Marcus explained. Instead of scanning what is, they scan what might be. Useful for finding things that exist in quantum superposition. The main screen flickered, showing the same empty space but overlaid with shifting patterns of light. Suddenly, those patterns coalesced into something solid. Holy! Captain Morrison breathed. A structure materialized before them. Though structure seemed inadequate. It was massive, easily the size of Earth's moon, but its geometry hurt to perceive. Surfaces that should be solid flowed like liquid. Angles that connected in ways three-dimensional space shouldn't allow. The whole thing pulsed with colors that Kyria's eyes couldn't quite process. It's beautiful, someone whispered. It's impossible, someone else corrected. Same thing for humans, Director Chin murmured. Captain, take us in. Slowly, as the Prometheus approached, a section of the structure irised open, or perhaps it had always been open and they only now could see it. The ship passed through into a chamber that somehow contained a breathable atmosphere, despite being open to space. How Kyria began. Don't ask, Marcus advised. Just accept it. Questioning impossible things while you're inside them tends to give humans migraines. They docked, though docked implied a more conventional process than what occurred. One moment they were moving, the next they were connected to the structure by walkways that definitely hadn't existed seconds before. The diplomatic party consisted of Marcus, Kyria, Director Chun, and two specialists in Xenocommunication. As they entered the structure, Kyria felt reality shift around them. Gravity pulled from different directions in different areas. Time seemed to flow in eddies and currents. Her zealothy spatial sense, usually so reliable, gave up entirely. They emerged into a chamber that defied description. It was simultaneously vast and intimate, ancient and newly formed. At its center waited three beings that Kyria's mind struggled to process. They were humanoid in the way a shadow was humanoid, the suggestion of form without fixed substance. Welcome, one said, though Kyria heard the word in her mind rather than through her ears. We are the Harmony Collective. We have watched. We have evaluated. Now we must decide. Decide what? Marcus asked, stepping forward with that human confidence that bordered on foolishness. Whether humanity represents evolution or extinction for this galaxy. The being's attention shifted to Kyria. And, you zealothy who thinks human. You are unexpected. Explain yourself. Kyria felt the weight of that attention like a physical force. I am Kyria Therinchin. I married a human to prevent war. I stay because I found something worth staying for. Elaborate. She thought of the past 6 months. The challenges, the discoveries, the gradual realization that thinking like a human didn't mean abandoning her zealothy nature, but expanding it. Humans see the universe differently, she said finally. Not as a set of rules to follow, but as possibilities to explore. They've taught me that impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet. That connection matters more than compatibility. That growth requires risk. Yet they are chaotic, unpredictable. They destabilize everything they touch. Yes, Kyria agreed, surprising everyone including herself. They do. But stability without growth is just stagnation with better marketing. The galaxy has been stable for millennia. And in all that time, what have we achieved? We've refined existing technology, established comfortable hierarchies, avoided risks. We've been slowly dying and calling it peace. The beings seemed to confer, though no words were exchanged. Director Chin stepped forward. If I may, she said, you're concerned about humanity's impact on galactic stability. But consider this, in 50 years we've gone from barely space-faring to bending the laws of physics. Not through conquest or theft, but through innovation. We don't want to destabilize the galaxy. We want to energize it. Your species has developed weapons that shouldn't exist, one being noted. Defense mechanisms. Marcus corrected. Every impossible thing we've created has been in response to a threat. We don't start fights. We end them. The Draconians would disagree. The Draconians attacked first, Director Chun said calmly. We simply ended it in a way they didn't expect. And when they retreated, we didn't pursue. We're not conquerors. We're explorers who've learned to defend ourselves. And yet you corrupt others. The attention returned to Kyria. This one thinks like you now. How long before others follow? How long before the galaxy's stability crumbles entirely? Is that corruption? Kyria challenged. Or is it evolution? I haven't lost my zealothy nature. I've expanded it. I can think in 4 dimensions while seeing in 3. I can embrace logic while accepting paradox. I'm not less than I was. I'm more. Prove it. Reality twisted. Suddenly, Kyria stood in 2 places at once, in the chamber and somewhere else. In the other place, she saw the galaxy as the Harmony Collective did, a vast web of interconnected species, each locked in their established patterns, slowly spiraling toward entropy. And there at one edge was humanity, a knot of chaos and possibility sending ripples through the web. She saw species beginning to question, to wonder, to dream of impossible things. She saw fear, yes, but also hope. Choose the being commanded. Order or chaos. Stability or growth. The galaxy as it was, or as it might become. It was an impossible choice. The zealothy part of her, trained in millennia of tradition, screamed for order. But the human part, the part that had learned to love impossible things. Both, she said. Impossible. Exactly. She smiled, a human expression on her alien face. That's what humans do. They look at impossible choices and find a third option. Order and chaos aren't opposites. They're dance partners. You need both for growth. She showed them her marriage. How 2 incompatible species had found harmony not by becoming the same, but by celebrating their differences. How stability and chaos could coexist, each tempering the other. Humans don't destabilize because they want to destroy, she continued. They destabilize because they want to build. Every impossible thing they create opens new possibilities for everyone. Yes, it's chaotic. Yes, it's unpredictable. But it's also the only way forward. The beings were silent for a long moment. Then, reality snapped back to a single location, leaving Kyria gasping. Interesting, one being said finally. You argue for synthesis rather than dominance. Growth through cooperation rather than conquest. It's the human way, Marcus said, moving to support Kyria. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to share it, to learn from it, to help it become something greater than any of us could achieve alone. And if others reject this vision, if they see your chaos as a threat to be eliminated, then we defend ourselves, Director Chen said simply. But we keep offering partnership. We keep building bridges. We keep doing impossible things not to intimidate, but to inspire. The beings conferred again. This time, Kyria caught fragments of their communication. Concepts too large for words, possibilities too complex for linear thought. A decision has been reached, they announced finally. Humanity will be permitted to continue. But you will be watched. Your impact measured. If you become a force for destruction rather than creation. We understand, Marcus said. Do you? Your species stands at crossroads. You can become the catalyst that transforms this galaxy into something magnificent. Or you can become the cancer that destroys it. The choice is yours. We choose growth, Director Chen said firmly. Always. Then go. Build your impossible futures. But, remember, with great capability comes great responsibility. The galaxy's fate may rest on whether humanity can master not just the impossible, but wisdom. The journey back to the Prometheus was a blur. One moment they were in the chamber, the next they were on their ship, the impossible structure fading from view like a dream upon waking. Did that just happen? Someone asked. Sensors confirm it, Captain Morrison reported. Though the readings are unusual. It's like the structure existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Of course it did, Kyria muttered. She found herself leaning heavily on Marcus, her multiple hearts racing from the strain of perceiving impossible things. You were magnificent, he told her quietly. The way you explained our marriage, our partnership. I don't think I could have done that. You would have found another way, she replied. Probably something involving explosions. His laugh was warm. I save explosions for third options, not first contact. Back on Earth, the debriefing lasted hours. Every detail was analyzed, every word scrutinized. The consensus was cautiously optimistic. Humanity had passed its first test, but more would surely come. The question now, Admiral Reyes said during the final session, is how we proceed. The Harmony Collective has given us permission to continue, but also a warning. We need to be more careful about how we introduce impossible things. Or, Director Chun suggested, we need to be more inclusive. Ambassador Therenchin proved that other species can adapt to our thinking. Perhaps it's time to expand our partnerships. All eyes turn to Kyria. You want more interspecies marriages? I want more interspecies everything, Chen clarified. Joint research projects, shared exploration missions, cultural exchanges that go beyond surface diplomacy. If we're going to transform the galaxy, we need allies who understand us. The Zealoty won't approve, Kyria warned. My standing with them is still complicated. But not everyone thinks like the Council, Marcus pointed out. Your sister mentioned younger Zealoty reaching out. Others too, Vorthans, even some Draconians. People curious about humans who see past the fear. It was true. In recent weeks, Kyria had received dozens of messages from members of various species, all variations on the same theme. If you can think like a human and remain yourself, could we? There's another factor, Director Chen added. The Harmony Collective mentioned we're being watched. Not just by them, but by others. Species we haven't encountered yet. Our choices now will determine whether they see us as potential partners or threats. No pressure, someone muttered. Pressure is where humans excel, Admiral Reyes said. Ambassador Therenchin, would you be willing to head a new initiative? Something to bridge human ambition with galactic wisdom. Kyria considered. It would mean more challenges, more impossible situations, more chances to fail spectacularly. 6 months ago, the thought would have terrified her. Now, I'll need resources, she said, and authority to act independently. And Marcus as co-director. Human perspective and alien wisdom in equal measure. Done, Reyes agreed immediately. Anything else? Yes. Kyria stood, her forearms spreading in a gesture that combined zealothy formality with human enthusiasm. We need a new motto, something that captures what we're trying to do. What do you suggest? Director Chen asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. Making the impossible inevitable, Kyria said. Because that's what humans do. And now it's what I do too. As the meeting dispersed, and she walked with Marcus back to their quarters, Kyria reflected on how much had changed. She'd started as a diplomat trying to contain humanity. Now she was an advocate for spreading their impossible dreams across the galaxy. Regrets? Marcus asked, echoing his question from months ago. Never, she replied, taking his hand with two of hers. Though I do wonder what impossibility we'll face next. Does it matter? We'll handle it the same way we handle everything else. By making it worse until it gets better. By refusing to accept that it can't be done, he corrected. Together. A human and a zealothy. Order and chaos. Stability and change. Living proof that impossible things weren't just possible, but necessary. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. But for the first time in millennia, it was about to remember how to dream. And that, Kyria thought with distinctly human satisfaction, was the most impossible thing of all. The first official graduate of the Human Galactic Integration Initiative wasn't who anyone expected. Kyria stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching as Vecthar, a young Draconian, demonstrated quantum probability manipulation to a mixed class of species. The sight would have been unthinkable a year ago. A member of the most reclusive species in the galaxy teaching others to think in impossible ways. He's better at it than most humans, Marcus noted, joining her at the window. Yesterday, he managed to exist in 3 places simultaneously for almost 5 minutes. His people won't be pleased, Kyria observed. The Draconian hegemony has maintained isolation since their conflict with humanity. Actually, they sent a message this morning. Marcus pulled up a hollow display showing Draconian script. Roughly translated. If our youth insist on learning human madness, better they do so under proper supervision than through dangerous experimentation. That's practically a ringing endorsement coming from them. We're choosing to interpret it that way. He paused, studying her. You've been quiet lately. Everything all right? Kyria considered the question. In the 18 months since their marriage, her life had transformed beyond recognition. The initiative had grown from a desperate attempt at integration to a thriving program with participants from 37 species. She'd become a bridge between worlds, teaching others to embrace impossible thinking while maintaining their cultural identities. But lately, she'd been experiencing changes. I've been having dreams, she admitted. Strange ones. I see mathematical equations that solve themselves backwards, colors that don't exist. Sometimes I wake up, and, for a moment, I can perceive time non-linearly. Marcus's expression sharpened. How long has this been happening? 3 weeks. Maybe 4. She turned to face him fully. Marcus, what's happening to me? Before he could answer, their comms chimed with an emergency alert. Admiral Reyes's face appeared, her expression grim. We have a situation. The Xiran have returned, and they're not alone. They brought something they call a reality anchor. They're demanding all human probability manipulation technology be surrendered immediately. Or, Marcus asked, though his tone suggested he knew. Or, they'll use the anchor to lock local space-time into a single configuration. No more quantum tunneling, no more impossible things. Just reality as they define it. The implications hit Kyria like a physical blow. Everything humanity had built, everything the initiative was teaching, depended on the ability to work outside conventional physics. A reality anchor would cripple not just human technology, but the new ways of thinking spreading across the galaxy. How long do we have? She asked. 6 hours. They want an answer by then. After Reyes disconnected, Kyria and Marcus stood in silence. Finally, she spoke. This is my fault. If I hadn't advocated for spreading human thinking stop. Marcus took her hands, all 4 of them, in his. This was always going to happen. Someone was always going to try to put us back in the box. The question is, what do we do about it? What can we do? If they activate that anchor then we think impossible thoughts until we find a solution. His smile was fierce. It's what we do, remember? An hour later, Unity Station's main conference room hosted the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Humans, Zelethi, Vorthans, 3 young Draconians, and a dozen other species, all united by their willingness to think beyond conventional limits. The reality anchor works by collapsing quantum probability fields, Director Chen explained, her aged hands steady as she manipulated the hollow display. It forces space-time into a single, stable configuration within its area of effect. How large an area? Asked Xin, a Vorthan physicist who joined the initiative 6 months ago. Based on our scans, approximately 1 light-year in radius. The room fell silent. A light-year was enormous, enough to encompass most solar systems. So we move our operations outside its range, someone suggested. They'll just build more, Marcus countered. This is a test. If it works here, every species threatened by human innovation will want one. Then, we need to make it not work, Vecthar said. The young Draconian scales shifted color, a sign of deep thought. In my studies of human impossibility, I've noticed something. You don't fight reality, you expand it. So perhaps we don't fight the anchor. Perhaps we expand what reality means. Kyria felt something click in her mind, like pieces of an equation falling into place. He's right. The anchor collapses probability fields into a single configuration. But what if there were multiple configurations that were equally valid? What if we could make impossible things so fundamentally real that excluding them would break reality itself? That's... Director Chun paused, calculations running behind her eyes. That's theoretically possible, but it would require synchronized probability manipulation on a scale we've never attempted. We need everyone, Kyria finished. Every person who's learned to think impossibly, all working together. The Xiran won't wait for us to organize something that complex, someone protested. Then we don't organize it, Marcus said, understanding lighting his features. We improvise it. Real-time quantum coordination. It's impossible, which means it's exactly what we need to do. The next 4 hours were controlled chaos. Every graduate of the initiative was contacted. Instructions were distributed, not detailed plans, but concepts, ideas, frameworks for synchronized impossibility. The beauty was that precision wasn't required. In fact, the more chaotic and varied their approaches, the better. Kyria found herself at the center of it, her changing perceptions suddenly an asset. She could see the patterns forming, probability streams across space as hundreds of beings prepared to think impossible thoughts in harmony. It's beautiful, she breathed, watching reality ripple with potential. You're beautiful, Marcus said, then blinked. Sorry, we're in the middle of a crisis. We're always in the middle of a crisis, she replied, surprised by the warmth his words generated. It doesn't mean we stop living. An alert chimed. 1 hour remained. They gathered on Unity Station's primary observation deck as the Zirin fleet approached. The reality anchor was massive, a crystalline structure that seemed to drain possibility from space around it. Where it passed, the universe became grimly deterministic. People of the Human Galactic Initiative, the Zirin commander's voice echoed through the station. You have corrupted the natural order with your impossibilities. Surrender your technology and return to proper thinking or face the consequences. Kyria activated the broad-spectrum communicator. Commander, I am Kyria Therenshin. I speak for the initiative. We offer a counter-proposal. There can be no negotiation. Order must be restored. I agree. But whose order? She let secondary arms spread wide, a gesture visible on the video feed. The galaxy contains hundreds of species, thousands of cultures, millions of ways of understanding reality. Who decides which is correct? The eldest, the most advanced, those who have maintained stability for millennia. Stability through stagnation. Vector interrupted, his image appearing beside Kyria's. My people were among the eldest. We thought we understood reality. Then, humans showed us we were living in only a fraction of what was possible. More images appeared. Vorthins, Altarians, even a few Zelethi who joined the initiative despite their government's disapproval. All speaking with one voice. Reality isn't singular, they said in unison, the words echoing with quantum resonance. It's a symphony of possibilities. Meaningless philosophy, the Zirin commander scoffed. Activate the anchor. The crystalline structure pulsed with harsh light. Reality began to solidify, possibilities collapsing into single states. Quantum effects ceased. Probability fields flattened. And then, across 100 worlds, impossible things began to happen. On Earth, children playing with probability toys made their imaginary friends briefly real. On the Vorthan homeworld, warriors' phase shifted through dimensions they'd only just learned existed. In the depths of space, young Draconians folded time into origami patterns that shouldn't exist. None of it should have affected the anchor's field. The actions were too far away, too uncoordinated, too chaotic. But that was the point. You see, Kyria explained as reality began to shiver around the anchor. You can lock down local space-time. You can enforce a single version of reality. But the universe is bigger than any anchor. And when enough beings across enough space decide that impossible things are real, the universe listens. The anchor's field wavered. Its crystalline structure began to resonate with harmonics it wasn't designed to handle. Reality wasn't fighting the device. It was incorporating it, making the anchor itself part of a larger, more complex possibility matrix. What are you doing? The Zirin commander demanded. We're not doing anything, Marcus replied, appearing beside Kyria. We're just being, existing in a universe where impossible things happen. Your anchor works perfectly in a reality where only one configuration is valid. But that's not our reality anymore. It's not anyone's reality, Kyria added. Not since humans reminded us that impossible is just another word for untried. The anchor pulsed frantically, its systems trying to process contradictions that kept multiplying. Every time it locked down one aspect of reality, 10 more impossible variations sprouted elsewhere. It was trying to empty an ocean with a bucket while rain poured from every direction. Finally, with a sound like crystalline laughter, the anchor transformed. Its harsh light softened. Its rigid structure became fluid. Instead of locking down reality, it began to amplify possibilities, becoming a beacon of potential rather than a prison of certainty. Impossible, the Zirin commander whispered. Exactly, Kyria said with satisfaction. Would you like to learn more about it? The aftermath changed everything. The transformed anchor became a symbol of what happened when you try to contain human thinking. It spread it instead. The Zirin, shaken by their device's transformation, agreed to diplomatic talks. Within weeks, young Zirin were applying to the initiative, eager to understand how their most advanced technology had been subverted by synchronized imagination. But, for Kyria, the most significant change was personal. "The dreams are getting stronger," she told Marcus one evening as they watched Earth's sunset from their apartment. "I can feel reality shifting around me sometimes, like I'm partially existing in multiple dimensions." Dr. Chun thinks it's evolution.